Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to Real Estate Insights. I'm your host, Andrew Glisson. Every Thursday at 5 o'clock, we're going to be here introducing you guys to a great panel of guests. We've got 3 guests on the show today that you guys are going to love. And we do this every Thursday at 5 o'clock. So obviously appreciate all you guys tuning in every single week. And we're going to bring you the best, real estate content that's available. A lot of what the show is geared towards is real estate investors. Those are most of the folks that watch our show are investing in real estate at some level, whether it's multifamily, single family rentals, commercial world, office buildings, retail. So we talk about the whole continuum and all the service providers that contribute to that world, the buyers, the sellers, the whole 9 yards, everything in between. One of the things that I wanted to kick off the show and talk to you guys about, we've gotten a lot of questions both from the show and personally. If you follow me on Instagram, then you'll know that I own a single family rental portfolio. We own a couple of hundred houses and we manage our own real estate portfolio. And so a lot of the comments that we get back from people are, I want to invest in real estate and buy single family rentals, but I don't really want to because there's a lot of fraud in space. I feel like I'm going to lose all my money. I hear it's too hard. My uncle told me that I shouldn't do it because he knew a guy that knew a guy that knew a guy, and they never made any money in real estate. So I get all that, but there are ways, especially if you have a mentor and you hire a mentor that can coach you through these things. There are ways to make money in this space, but fraud is a really big deal. So I wanted to take the first 10 minutes of the show and talk to you guys about some fraud, some of the new fraud that's out there, some of the things that you guys should be mindful of if you want to get into real estate, or you already own real estate and you're managing your own properties, or you own a big property management company, you manage thousands. Listen, my team talks to property management firms all over the country, and we try to advise them on how to do this the right way and minimize the fraud. So let me kick it off. The first thing I want to talk to you guys about with regard to fraud is fraudulent activities targeting renters. I want to talk about that first because it's our job. I really feel like it's our job and duty as landlords to protect the community from a lot of different things. But the first thing that we try to protect people from before they even move into our house and before people are out there looking for a place to live. And the new technology that's out there in the space is self-tour technology. And so there are a number of different service providers where you can literally show up at a house. You can type in a code, let yourself into that house, and you can tour that property. There's not a leasing agent there. It's made on the property management side. It's made things very efficient. It's minimized the cost because we used to have to pay half a month's rent in leasing fees to a leasing person in terms of commission. And so it's made our business more efficient, but it's had its fair share of fraud enter the space. In the early days, 4 years ago, when we first started doing this, there wasn't any sort of solution around the scammers. A scammer could hack into that process, not really hack, but they could interject themselves into the process between the listing side and somebody who wanted to tour that house and give the prospective applicant a code, and they could let themselves in and walk around. So that is one of the frauds that's out there. There are service providers that have solved that piece of the issue, but you've got to be a little bit careful if you're doing the self-tour technology. There are entities, people out there that will put themselves in the middle of that process, give a fake code to somebody. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to get a couple $1,000 out of that person and let them move into your property unsuspecting. And so they'll wire them the money, a couple $1,000 for the down payment and first month's rent, and then that scammer is gone. And so as a landlord, you have to put yourself in the middle of that process. And the way we do that is we have a very good service provider that validates credit card information, ID. They geotag and geolocate that phone. So they have to be within 5 feet of that lockbox to let themselves in to do that self-tour. We're validating information the whole way. And then when they get inside, we have door hangers that are hanging all over the place that say, beware of fraud. This is how to prevent getting scammed. And so we've solved a lot of that. But that right now is the biggest scam targeting renters. It's the self-tour lockbox space. The scammers putting themselves into the middle of that process, and they're getting in the middle of basically you and that prospective applicant before they get to tour that house. So to the extent that you can increase the technology side, if you guys are thinking about self-tour technology, you want to have these conversations with your service provider and just ask them about that particular type of fraud and how they are helping you avoid that. We've been on the front lines of that. trying to stop this scam, and we think we've done a really good job of that. The other way that fraud is perpetuated is a hijacked listing. So you will put your real estate listing onto Zillow or Realtor.com or wherever you syndicate, or your property management software syndicates. The scammer takes the pictures, takes the information, and puts it on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace. And then what happens is that now they control the process. They know how your lockbox technology works. Even if they can't let that prospective tenant in, they'll tell that prospective tenant when they want to tour the house, "Oh, I'm out of town. I can't let you in." There's a lot of ways that they reel that person in. And people are emotional. They fall in love with where they live, and they want this to be true. It doesn't quite feel true, but they think it is. And so a lot of people will send money for application fees, down payment, security deposit, first month's rent, without even touring the place. So it doesn't have to be self-tour. It can just be your listing's up on the internet, and it gets hijacked. It's the hijack listing. So what we do is we have a team that goes through when we put things on the internet, and they're scouring Facebook and Craigslist to try to find the listing that's been hijacked for us. One of the ways you can protect your listing, we do this on every single one of our listings, watermark your pictures. If you watermark your pictures with your company's logo, and you have to put a drop shadow on it and make it 50% transparent. Don't forget those two things. Drop shadow, 50% transparent. Nobody can remove that watermark off the picture. It's impossible. So that's what we do. If they don't have pictures of your property, then it's very unlikely that they're going to hijack that listing. And so that is a way to protect yourself. We do that again with every single one of our pictures, and we've seen the fraud on our hijack listings go to virtually non-existent because we've come around and we've figured out they would rather pick on somebody else who doesn't have watermark on their pictures than deal with us. So be careful of the hijack listing. Be careful of the self-tour technology targeting renters. Another fraud, and I'm watching the countdown timer. I realize I could talk to you guys about this for a couple of hours, but I don't have that much time. So I'm going to skip through a few of these. We'll talk about them later. But there is a scam that's out there, and we have called it the house finder scam. We've made law enforcement aware of this. I believe our team was the first people really nationally to uncover that this scam was happening to the level that it was. But you guys have got to be incredibly serious and thorough on every applicant that comes in the door. You can't just, let me give you an example, see where somebody works, Google that company, and call that number on the phone to validate that they work there. What the scammers have done, they've gotten insanely smart about this. They know how to create fake websites, fake companies, fake Google profiles, real phone numbers, real email addresses. So when you guys take an application in and you're calling and you're Googling and you're trying to do your due diligence, you guys are calling real websites that look like real companies that have real phone numbers, and you're talking to people, and it's all fake. Because the house finder scam, what's happening is that somebody with a credit profile that is not quite to the threshold of the property will go to find the house finder, pay them $1,500 or more to fix the credit. Now they're fixing the credit. They're putting disputes in with credit card with the reporting firms. They are basically attaching this applicant to their credit to bring their credit score up. So it's a very long-term fraud. And the first part is fixing the credit. The second part is getting them into your house with fake information. So the application's fake, the residential history's fake, the references are fake, the emergency contact is fake, everything's fake. So what happens is that basically you're trying to call and do your due diligence and to validate all this information that was on the application for this prospective resident, and everything's checking out. You're getting fraudulent documents from a PDF that look like, legitimate pay stubs. Hey, I Googled the company. I called them. Somebody answered the phone. I called all the references. I called everybody. I called the residential history, and it's all fake. So there's a couple ways that you can figure this out that my team has identified. You've got to really dig in and sort this out. First of all is to validate the employment via a report called the Work Number Report. The Work Number Report, 95% of all employers pay payroll through a payroll provider that basically validates into the Work Number Report that this is a real company. This is a validated payroll provider that is paying this person. It is a real deal. So try to get a Work Number Report. Our property management software gives us that. We run it on everybody. It's expensive, but it's going to be way less expensive than if you put a fraudster in your property. The second thing that we do is we go to the Secretary of State's website, wherever your state is. Most states are going to require that a locally operated business is going to have to register with the Secretary of State. And so what you're looking for is that entity active. So somebody told me they work for Tri-State Maintenance. I don't even know if that's a real company anywhere in the country. It's a fake one that we identified in our local area. So if that's a real company locally for you, then then I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the fake one that we found. In Tennessee, we ran Tri-State Maintenance into the Secretaries of State's database. It didn't come up. It came up as an inactive company. It was not active in the state of Tennessee. So that wasn't the only thing that we checked, but that kind of raised our spidey sense. Like, if we can't find this company is doing business in the state of Tennessee, they're not registered, they may not be a real company. So that was one of the checks that we went through. Again, we're trying to validate all this information as we go along. Look at email addresses. If it's at Proton Mail, at Outlook, at Gmail, we need a legitimate company email address to validate residential history, to validate employment history. You've just got to go through a series of steps. We talk a lot about this at our mentorship program called the Victory Strategy. I've already run 2 minutes over time, so I got to stop. I've missed 8 different theft and scams that I want to talk to you guys about. But those are the 3 biggest ones that we see. The House Finders is the brand new one. Reach out to me on Instagram if you want to learn any more about that. I'll tell you more about it. We're going to go to our first break. When we come back, we have CEO of Refuel Electric Vehicle Solutions, David Aaronson. They're putting electric charging stations in apartment complexes all over the country. He's always amazing to talk to. This is a really cool topic everybody wants to talk about. Is the transition from fossil fuels to electric, and David's on the forefront of that. So when we get back out of Houston, we'll be right back with David. See you in a minute. Welcome back, everybody. David Aaronson is joining us back on the show. David, if you guys have followed the show, he is the founder and CEO of a company called Refuel Electric Vehicle Solutions, REVs for short. They got the logo right on your shirt, David. I need one of those. Welcome back, man. How you been?
It's been a hot summer, but generally been really good. Watching our
really
business
has,
grow.
man. Yeah. Down there in Houston, I mean, it's 100 degrees all the time, isn't it?
I think we finally have broken that pattern, but it was a long time coming. It always is.
David, is it, if it's hotter outside, do cars charge faster? If it's colder outside, do they charge slower? How does that work?
Well, I think certainly it's no different than than anything. If it's hotter outside, the battery's going to have to work more. So yes, that certainly cuts into the mileage that we get. And the same thing if it's colder. If you need to run a heater, the battery runs off of a heater, and if you're needing to heat your car when you drive, it's gonna hit the mileage that you can get.
Yeah, I gotcha. So everybody, David's business is installing electric vehicle charging stations at multifamily properties. You guys are all over the country. How do you, David? You guys are reporting on the billing and the usage on these stations. How do you get that transparently over to the management at the multifamily complex?
So it's actually pretty simple, because every one of the vendors that we do that we put up their charging equipment, they all have portals, and our clients can sign into those portals just like we do. So we give them access to that portal, and they can pull up the information if they are interested in seeing what's happening.
Gotcha. So it's live daily as people are using the charging stations. They're watching the ticker.
Exactly. If they want to, yes, we are.
Gotcha.
I can tell you that. That's what we do. So since we've paid for it all, we're very interested to make sure that it's being used and they're working and all that. So
yeah, what kind of data is important in these reports, and what types of reporting templates are people looking at to try to understand the usage?
Well, I think it varies depending on who your audience is. If you're someone like me who's trying to make money off of the refueling, obviously the most important thing I want to see is how often it's being used. And I
Yep.
also want to understand what time of day it's being used and
Oh
how many
yeah.
different customers are using the machines. I can get all that information off of a portal. If I'm a ESG consultant for a property owner, I'm going to want to know how many kilowatts have been used, and I'm going to then want to translate that into how many gallons have been saved of gasoline.
Hmm. Oh,
And
cool.
so it just depends who your audience is, I think, as far as the information you want to get off of this.
Right. And how much can you tell about the user that's plugging their car in? Can you tell what kind of car they are? Or I guess you can
Pretty
tell
much
unique individual
everything.
users.
Pretty much
Really?
everything.
Okay.
I can see, the VIN number on the car, so I can keep
Wow.
track of how many times they're charging. Um,
Interesting.
one person's charging. I can find out what time of day they're charging. I can understand those habits. Um, I can, I find out how many kilowatts are used with each charge. That's important
Yeah.
to me, because I don't want people going in and using my parking space all night long and only
Right.
taking 10 kilowatts. I want them to get a meaningful charge. So, and not block somebody else who may need the charger more. So there's a lot
True.
of information I can get off of these things,
Man.
probably more than anybody needs.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I mean, VIN number on the car, that's wild. I didn't know you got that much data back, but I guess it makes sense. How
Yeah.
are there any like unique things that you found as you've cut the data over the last few years? You guys have been doing this for a while now. What are some interesting, kind of things you've pulled out of this of the data you're looking at?
Well, I mean, look, I think it's interesting how many people, what they use, how long they use the machines for. I think that's interesting
Hmm.
because of course, we want them to go as long as possible. Other information is time, what time of day they're charging. Okay.
Hmm.
Some of these states that have really hot temperatures, in fact, probably most utility companies have time of use charging, and it allows them to, when the grid is being stressed, increase their rates. And
Mm.
so
Yep.
you want to know when the user is using, if it's being used during those time frames, obviously we want to increase our rates or turn the machine off so that we don't lose money on that machine. So
Oh
that's
wow.
the kind of information we're looking for.
So if you're turning the machine off, I mean, that's going to upset a resident, right? When they think they're going to get to
It
charge their car and
may,
they can't.
it may, or the question is, if I leave it on and I increase the rate during those times, are they going to be more mad that they're paying high rates, which
True.
isn't my fault? It's not my fault, but
Right.
sometimes the rates are, really high. And it just depends on the utility company. It can get
Yep.
obscenely high during those times of day.
Can it really? So do you do apartment complexes provide this as a free service for residents, or do they charge the residents back for this?
Well, it started off where all of them were doing it for free, but free
Hmm.
isn't free because they're having to pay for the electricity. And
Yep,
so
exactly.
we've seen more and more apartment owners switch to a model where they can make money
Yep.
off of EV charging business, or of course engage us, and that's what we do. Is we are looking to make money off of the EV business, just like people who own gas stations are looking to make money when they
Sure.
sell gas. I
It,
don't have the benefit of or the cost or the burden of having a little convenience store that I need to run where I can make my
right.
profit. Okay, selling a bag of potato chips for $5. So I have to make what I make off of the charging stations.
Yep. That's interesting. So I don't have really any concept of how much it costs, I guess, per kilowatt hour when you're charging something. But let's just say, the total cost is 10 cents for, however long it was plugged in. If you're making a little money off of that and the apartment complex wants to make a little money off of that, do you think is it 2 cents is it 2 cents you're marking up, 2 cents they're marking up? Is that kind of a fair thing, or is it less than that? What
Well,
does that look like?
generally speaking, when we come in, we'll mark the cost of the electricity up two and a half, three times what our cost is. So if our cost is 10 cents a kilowatt hour, we'll charge 30 cents. And we
Okay.
will give the property owner a percentage of the profit
Got it.
That if that property produces any profit.
If it produces any profit.
I
So
mean,
you guys, so
not
potentially
used.
it may not.
Yeah, I mean, if they don't have any EV residents, which some properties don't,
Well, right.
then it's not going to get used that much. And we generally need about, before these machines turn profitable, you generally need two people charging about, two people who average about 700 miles a month and driving, using this as their
Okay.
primary charging stations. You probably need this charging station to be used about an hour and a half to 2 hours a day.
To be profitable. I mean, that's not a long period of time. It seems like that would get used a lot for, decent sized apartment complexes.
And we have them all over the board. We have some that aren't getting hardly any usage, and we have some that are just, busy 4 or 5 hours a day.
Yep. Is there any geographical area or any, I guess median rent price for an apartment that you're going to, guaranteed you're going to see more usage than somewhere else?
Well, I think right now we're seeing it more in the Class A apartments,
Right.
but Class B plus, we'll see them in Class B. As the industry evolves, you're going to have, I mean, we're already starting to see more lower price cars come into the market. We're
Yep.
seeing resales of existing cars, and those buyers are generally going to be in the B apartments.
Right.
And so we also get a lot of more incentives in some of the lower income areas where you put these charging stations. So, we're a long-term business. We
Yep.
don't mind putting a charging station in a property where we may not see usage for a year. We don't like it, but
Yep.
cost of ownership is very low once we get the
Right.
station.
So let's just roll it out, and if you build it, they will come. One more question, David.
We see that, and we see that happening in almost all these properties.
Yeah. If there is, one more question on kind of the billing side of these things. Like, if there is a billing dispute, it sounds like it's pretty easy to solve because you guys are. I mean, it's pretty transparent. This is how much power we use. This is how much we paid for it. Here's the spread.
You would think, yeah. You would think it would be very easy, Andrew. But these companies, many of these companies that are in this industry are new companies, and they're still trying to get their procedures down. So
Yeah.
sometimes, I mean, we check it all. We can pull we know how much each station's being used, and sometimes when we look at what money they send us, it doesn't add up. So we do
Yep.
check all that. That's something you get when you do business with us. We're always looking.
Well, Dave, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show. Refuel Electric Vehicle Solutions. If you're a multifamily owner and you guys are planning projects, you guys are probably one of the biggest in the space now, David. So you've had a lot of great success.
Yeah, we're up to over 100 properties, Andrew, in our network.
That's
We're
amazing.
all over the country where we own and operate EV charging stations and looking to grow it.
Well done. Good stuff. Well, David, thanks again. We'll see you next week. We'll be right back, everybody. Welcome back, everybody. We've got Griselda Abousleman back on the show. She's an executive coach, an executive, owns a lot of real estate. Griselda, I don't think there's anything that you don't touch that works out perfectly and turns to gold.
I wish that was the case, Andrew. So I do work really hard to make sure that things line up as expected. But yeah, there's glitches here and there. Of course there are, right? We're business leaders.
Yeah.
Everything
Absolutely.
happens. It's a matter of how you juggle it all and make it work.
Man, for sure. But with everything that you've got going on, we'll have to talk sometime on the show about how you manage, the calendar and your time, because that's a big part of this. But I wanted to talk, on this segment specifically a little bit about, kind of legal and regulatory environment, specifically around short-term rentals. You invest, pretty heavily in short-term rentals. You've got a nice portfolio down in Texas, and around the country. You live in Florida now, right?
Correct. Yes, I'm in Florida.
Yes. So as you're looking at, investments, how do you identify, short-term rental rules and regulations in certain municipalities? Or are you scared to invest, in municipalities where They haven't made a decision on regulations. Like, talk to me about that regulatory environment. How can you make a safe investment, around the country in short-term rentals right now?
So as you well know, every investment has its risk, right? So it's just being informed. So we invest in several states, actually: Arizona, Texas, Florida, and North Carolina as well. But
Mm-hmm.
but basically, it's a matter of being in the know on what those regulations are and making a conscious decision whether you want to go into that environment or not, right? So it's not always a yes. I mean, we've looked at other states, and sometimes it's a no for us. Sometimes we sold properties because it's not advantageous to us. So it's really just being
Yep.
in the know on the details, the taxes. Hot taxes now are new, right? So there's a lot of things that you need to be aware of, because all that could impact your profit, and you might not want to be in that space, in that region.
Interesting. Are taxes more expensive for short-term rentals in different locations?
There are, yeah. So for short term versus long term, and then obviously if you're, it's just your prime residence, it's much lower. But it does differ. So there's hotel occupancy tax, the infamous hot tax
Mm-hmm.
out there.
Oh,
I
yeah.
guess it
Yep.
varies by region. So if you're in a hot market by the lake, by the beach, by a river, there's a pretty hefty HOT tax. So you need to be aware of what those are, and as you run the numbers, make sure that it makes sense for you to be in that space, in that region.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of like staying compliant with, those, rules and regulations and taxes, do the deal channels like, Airbnb or Expedia, do they collect those taxes and file all that on your behalf? Or are you responsible for that? How does that work?
It is both. So they collect some, and what I've noticed is specific to their local municipality and state sometimes. Beyond that, obviously not, right? So like, for example, the
Yep.
one that I mentioned, the hot tax, they don't do that. That's on your own. Obviously, federal
Oh,
taxes.
wow.
So it's a little bit of, you have to be in the know. Some of them have them, some of them don't, and they vary. I've seen anywhere from like 10, 11% up to 17% on HOT
Oh,
tax.
gosh.
Occupancy is
Like per
crazy.
nightly stay?
Per stay, for like a
Yeah,
3 day stay, 4 day stay. So it
man.
is hefty, right? And so you have to be aware of, do I really want to be in that space? And does it make sense, right? Do I still make a profit in being in there? So
Right.
you really have to run the numbers and juggle it all and say, look, this is one that I want to be in, and this is one that is not going to be, high occupancy, so I don't want to be in that. And we've sold a couple
Right.
because of that.
When you've sold, just out of curiosity, are you selling to other investors or is it homeowners?
Other investors primarily, at least in the last two. One of them
Yep.
was right in that COVID timeframe. I'll call it the
Okay.
COVID craze. I don't know. You're in the real estate market a
Yeah.
bit. Remember
Yeah.
what happened during COVID is like all this
Hmm.
concern, and then phew, all of a sudden everything skyrocketed. So it was
Yeah.
a good market to sell if you're in the, if you wanted to sell. But anyway, it's
Yeah.
unpredictable, but you got to catch the wave. And really, Andrew, in terms of how to know regulations and when those good points are to buy or sell, it's just being in the know, doing your research daily. And I really mean that.
Right.
It's being aware of social media. Airbnb will send you some information, but it's just
Hmm.
nuggets to get your attention so that you look in and do the research yourself.
Are you more comfortable investing in a short-term rental I guess a municipality that has made a decision on, how they're going to look at short-term rentals with rules and regulations, or can you even trust that? Because I guess they could come back the next year and change the laws. Does that make a difference in the analysis for you?
It does make a difference, which is why you got to do the analysis yearly. At least that's what we do, right? You can't just do the analysis for that area, that region, you invest and you put it away. You have to take a look at
Yep.
it every year, because things will change. Sometimes they change within the year too. So it's not like
Sure.
you can go through a whole year, but it gives you enough planning time to decide whether you're going to stay in that market or not. But I strongly encourage
Makes
any
sense.
investor in real estate to run the numbers and at least yearly look at the regulations and decide whether you stay in that market or you look for other markets.
Yep.
Mhm.
In the markets where you sold a couple of things, did they change the regulations and it just made it just too expensive to operate competitively? Is that kind of what happened?
Honestly, no. In that space, it was going to be a matter of we were going to have to hire a maintenance crew to maintain the property for us because we're not going to be in North Carolina anymore. And it's a beautiful place. Maybe I'll go back there again. But at the time, it made sense for us to get rid of it. So we did sell it. We made some good chunk of change right around COVID time. And we moved to Florida. So it's just a matter of
not a bad place to be.
Yeah. So it's a matter of where you want to be. And in that case, it made sense for us. We're not going to be able to go there as frequently as you need to really for maintaining property.
Griselda, what about homeowners associations? I mean, you've got rules and regulations that are set up by local governments and municipalities, but you also have the HOA, which is like a mini, municipality and government. Do you care to, pay? I mean, the HOA fees are one thing that they can change, but do HOAs, do you see them restricting Airbnbs? Is that another consideration? How do you dig into the HOA side of it?
So we've done both HOA and non. At first, I thought that the ones that did not have HOA would be better, and we had those. And it is good, obviously, there's no fees that you pay. But when you look at it, in some areas, the fee is not a hefty fee. It's not high. But what they do is they do maintain the area for you. They do ensure that there's no crazy vehicles parked all over the place or the landscaping is looking bad. So I don't mind HOA fees and guidance because I think they protect the area for investors, for people that are looking to maintain the area nice and neat. Actually, where we were in North Carolina, it was right by the Trump National Golf Course on Lake Norman, and there was no HOA in the neighborhood that we were in. So it's past the point, past the golf course, and in that location, there was no HOA. It was nice, but it was up to us to maintain it that way, right? There was no HOA that's going to help us.
Yeah, you had to go and figure all that out. Right. Do you guys manage your own stuff, or do you hire property managers?
Both. So we hire property managers, and on one, it's actually a property management company that belongs to my brother. So I hire it out, but his brother that's doing the work with his crew in Texas and doing it. So for me, it's hired it all out because I'm coaching and I'm consulting. I don't have time to manage the properties, but we want to make sure that everything is, to the expectations of our customers. So we hire people that we trust, and I have full trust in him.
Yep. What would you say to somebody that's looking at? I mean, you guys operate luxury properties and they look beautiful. You walked us through one time, which is awesome. What would the average property management fee be, out of curiosity, for a place like yours?
Oh, that completely depends on who you hire, right? So, for example, I told you my brother and his crew are the ones that maintain for us. I won't give out his rates because obviously everyone will find it attractive, but please know that it is a business that I'm getting a discount, huge one, because he's part of the business, right? So it's not like that would be something that they would have everywhere. But 5-6%, we found those, and some people say, no, you're never going to find it under 8%. So we have found those, and it's not a family business that we've partnered with. But for the most part, I think that 8 to 15% is what I found to be the majority.
Okay. Somebody reached out to me on Instagram and told me they were operating a luxury lake house in Washington State, and they were paying 40% management. I thought that was a little bit of highway robbery. So hopefully you guys are doing better than that.
Yeah, no, there's some places in Florida, in the Destin, Florida area, that are in that 25, 30, 35%. So it's not the demand of the market. Yeah.
Yeah, we better be occupied 100% of the time if you're paying that much, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
High occupancy.
Yep.
Well, Griselda, thanks for jumping on and talking us through, some of the legal ramifications around some of this. I'm always, interested to get your thoughts and opinions on things. So it's fun to have you on the show. We're going to pop into a commercial break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. I'm excited to see Gino Barbaro back on the show. He and his partner, Jake, decided to invest in multifamily real estate a number of years ago. And you guys are up to several thousand units in the multifamily world. And listen, everybody, he's done it like we try to tell you guys in terms of, find a mentor, buy a distressed asset, reposition it, cash out, stabilize it, and cash out refi. And you guys have done this successfully for over a decade now, Gino, right?
Yep.
So with that being said, one of the things that we're going to talk about today is you can also make mistakes along the way. So for every successful real estate entrepreneur that you see, there have been times where you probably not slept at all at night, and you probably had to show up at a job site, at the very crack of dawn to, knock some sense into some people. So I wanted to take the show in the 10 minutes we have, Gino, together, and let's just talk about some of the biggest mistakes that you've made, some of your failures, how to avoid those, for people watching the show, kind of moving forward.
Andrew, I want everyone to understand listening to this is if you're investing in real estate and you haven't lost money in real estate, then you probably haven't done any deals, because I have never met an individual who has never not lost money. It's just part of the business. It's part of life. I think everyone looks at Instagram and sees that we're doing so well and everyone's closing deals and life is just wonderful. But then when you scratch the surface and you look underneath, you realize that everyone is out there is just winging it and trying to figure it out. And that's how I felt when I first started, Andrew. You said the biggest mistakes. I think the biggest mistake that anybody can achieve or anybody can do early on is they think about a return on investment. I've got 10 grand. Where do I put that 10 grand? Yeah. And instead of saying, I don't want to look for a deal, I need to put that 10 grand into myself. I need to personally develop myself, my goals. What am I trying to achieve? I always tell people a person with money meets a person with experience. The person with experience gets the money, and the person with the money gets the experience. And that happened to me early on. I had a little pile of money. I did the same thing as an investor. Where should I put it? I wasn't even thinking about the type of investment or who I should invest it with. I was just greedy. I just wanted to make money, right? And I found somebody who was unscrupulous, who really didn't know what he was doing, although I thought he did. I gave him my money. He ended up losing it after 18 months. But I can always say to myself, wow, Andrew, it was his fault. When in reality, I shared just as much blame, if not more, than him, because I didn't understand the investment vehicle that I was going into. I didn't understand due diligence. I didn't understand how to take this property over. It was all about my lack of understanding and my responsibility and pushing it off onto somebody else and expecting them to do the work for me. That's the biggest learning lesson that I did. And that, Andrew, is what pushed me into multifamily real estate. I said, I want to learn multifamily. How do I do it? And instead of taking that $20,000 and going and investing into a multifamily property, I learned the business in the classroom with mentors, with coaches. So that when the opportunity arose that Jake showed up in my life, I had the value. I knew how to invest properly. We partnered up together. And I guess, as they say, the rest is history after many years of learning the business.
So Gino, basically that first experience where you gave some money to somebody and they lost all your cash in 18 months, that most people would have walked away from the business and said, real estate's not for me. So what was it about the business that really kind of drew you in and you doubled down after that?
Well, there's a couple things. I have an Italian family, so I had to constantly hear my mother telling me, I told you so, I told you so. And I wanted to be that person to say, I'm going to show you all. I am not just the pizza guy. God put me on this planet to be a lot more than somebody stuck in the kitchen washing dishes. That's what motivated me. I had 3 kids at the time. I have 6 children now. I knew that I needed to make more money. And I knew that real estate, once I look around and I see all the wealth that's created from real estate, I knew that I was in the right vehicle. I just didn't know how to drive the vehicle. I had to learn how to drive the vehicle. That's what motivated me. And listen, I found a deal a year after I lost my money with that gentleman I call Maserati Mike. I made my second mistake and I lost another couple $100,000. And that's when I said, time out. There's got to be a right way. But Andrew, you go through these things in life and it's not easy. But I knew in my heart of hearts that I'd rather have 20 or 30 units than have one small little restaurant that depended solely on the economy. When the economy was good, I made some money. When the economy slowed down, I lost money. And oh, by the way, when COVID shut down everything up in New York, I thankfully had sold the restaurant, but I would have been out of business for good. That's what ended up motivating me, Andrew.
So Gino, we've got, you can make mistakes in the acquisition process. There's a lot more, but I think about it in 4 kind of main categories: acquisitions, renovation or construction, property management, and dispo. So what are some memorable moments of some key mistakes in each of those four buckets in the
I
5 minutes
love the
we have left?
buckets you have. What I like to call it is really the 3-step framework for due diligence. You got to look at the
Yep.
financial aspect of it first. You have to know the numbers. You have to have your underwriting, and you have to have actual numbers. So once you're doing your due diligence, get the actual numbers. The second component is the physical. Understand the physicality of the building, the age, the plumbing, the electrical. You're going to get inspectors. You need to inspect it. The third component is the legal. Do you have title insurance? Do you have proper certificates of occupancy? All of that needs to be taken care of. And I love yours, dude, which is the disposition, which is the exit strategy. Nobody considers this when they're starting out. You don't buy real estate to hold it forever. You may, but that's an exit strategy because you're holding it, you're going to refinance it, and you're going to operate it. What is your clear-cut exit strategy? Mine with Maserati Mike. Here's my money, Mike. You know what? Give me some money some months and some money other months. I may not get it, but what are we going to do with this asset? Are we going to ultimately refinance it or sell it or hold on to it? I didn't have the clear plan. So your 4 steps are phenomenal. Every time you look at an asset, what are you going to do? How are you going to exit that asset? Because you don't make money in real estate by buying real estate. You make money in real estate by exiting it, whether you're selling it or refinancing it, crystallizing the equity. Now, you do make money in the buy with cash flow and all, but the majority of your money made in this business is by exiting that asset, either through a sale or a refinance. So get crystal clear on how you're exiting that deal.
Do you change strategies as you go along? So you buy something with the strategy that I'm going to hold this thing forever, but then you sell it. What are some reasons? Like, why would you do that?
Yeah, well, you know what? You get more experience. When you first start out, you tend to buy cheaper, older assets because that's all you know. I'm going for value. I'm going for these high cap rates. But as you get more experience and you get more capital, and there's something called the market cycle. When the market cycle was at where it was when I was buying assets back in 2011 and 12 when I first started, those older assets were really cheap. They were bargain prices. So that's when you buy them. As the market cycle lengthened over the last 7 or 8 years, those cheap assets weren't cheap anymore in relation to the newer assets. So you start shifting the strategy, but you have to know these things. I didn't know these things. I had bought an old mobile home park back in 2005 with Maserati Mike, that one that I sold. I shouldn't have bought that asset. It was too old for the part of the market cycle. I overpaid. These are the mistakes that you learn in life. And I think ultimately, please, anybody listening to this, understand what your why is. If you can understand what your why is, and you get really clear on it, and you dial that in, and you find a good person, a good partner to hold you accountable, when the tough times come, you will be able to overcome those tough times.
Gino, in your mentorship program that you guys have, how do you keep investors accountable to some of those like macro goals that you set? Do you guys have calls and things like that? So everybody, Gino's got a lot going on. He writes books. He owns a lot of multifamily. They also have a coaching platform. So in terms of accountability, I think that's huge. If somebody's going to get a mentor, what are some of those steps to make sure you're helping them and they're getting the personal development along the way?
I think if anybody's looking to get into mentorship program, there has to be one-on-one. You want to have one-on-one with the coach. So I have one-on-one calls with my students, but we also have coaches. And then also you want weekly touch points with the community. So every Monday at 12 o'clock, we have an expert on for an hour. I want to be able to converse with my students live. We have the platform where they're answering questions live. We have a private Facebook group where they're live. Once a month, I have a mastermind call with the entire community. We're on there networking. People are meeting each other. Every 2 to 3 months, we have a live in-person event. We just had one in Nashville a couple of weeks ago, August 10th. It was phenomenal. Nashville is a freaking amazing city. All the students, we have 60 students there. So for you to get into a mentorship program, it's not just sitting in front of a computer watching some videos. You want education, but you also need the implementation. You need somebody to tell you what's the next step. That's what community and education and mentorship should be all about.
Man, I agree. And that's something that I think's lost on a lot of programs that are out there. You can watch a bunch of videos, but there's not that handheld, guides you along the process, which is so key. So, Gino, when does your book come out? I've got not even a couple minutes left. I've just watched the countdown ticker go to 0. But tell me about your book and when is it coming out? You just wrote a new one.
Bro, Andrew, I love talking to you, brother. A day without Andrew is like a day without sunshine, my friend. That's all I got to say. The book, Baby Money Soul, just came out a couple weeks ago. And if you want a copy, just email me, Gino@jakeandgino.com. I love the book.
Awesome.
It's just about personal finance. So if you want a copy, Gino@jakeandgino.com.
That's awesome. Gino, one more thing. I don't care. Y'all can yell at me in my ear all you want to. I've got one more question for Gino, so take it out of my time. What would you say as a parting thought to somebody who is down and out in the dumps, real estate's not going well, they need an encouragement? Give us some parting words.
If a pizza guy can do it and the drug wreck can do it, then anybody can do it.
With that, I love it. You guys can do it. Gino, jakeandgino.com. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks, brother.
Talk to you soon. See you guys. Be right back, everybody. That's all we have for you today, guys. I hope you found some value in some of the things that we talked about today, some of our guests. I personally get a lot of value. Every time I talk to Gino Barbaro, he is uplifting, super positive. It helps me, brighten up my day when I do these interviews with Gino. And in all seriousness, the market has been hard for investors over the last 18 months, but there's light at the end of the tunnel, and you guys can be successful in this business. And if I can help you any way that I can, reach out to me on Instagram. And if not, we'll see you next week, 5 o'clock Thursday. It's Now Media, Real Estate Insights. Take care, everybody.
This has been a Now Media Networks feature presentation. All rights reserved.